Welcome to Stock Therapy with Penny Queen. Today I have Jesse Redmond with LEEF Brands. Jesse, welcome back.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here because I want to talk about this new partnership with GLAS.A.U. Can you explain to me exactly what this deal is?
Yeah, sure. So let's talk through it a little bit and maybe start by setting the stage in terms of who these two companies are, and then can talk about the synergies between them. And synergies is kind of a term that makes me cringe sometimes and is overused, but in this case, I really think there are, meaningful synergies here that are real win-win for both companies. So to set the stage here, GLAShouse Brands is one of the largest California cannabis companies. They have the big greenhouses, 5.5 million square feet in Camarillo, California, about an hour from where I am in Santa Barbara. And then they also have 10 retail stores across California, all very beautiful, nice stores. There's one here in town called The Pharmacy. And GLAShouse's business is mainly finished flower, meaning they grow flower that gets put in jars or is bulk wholesaled, and then they also sell a lot of those products through their retail store. We are LEEF Brands. We are a similar model, but a bit different in that we are a bulk extraction company. So we make a lot of the products that go in California concentrates. We have the state-of-the-art lab in Mendocino County called LEEF Labs, where we have our 3 extraction lines, and that really is the hub of our business. Then we're also planting Salsbury Canyon Ranch, which is a farm about an hour and a half from Santa Barbara, which is going to really change the quality and costs of our input materials. We can talk about Salsbury Canyon Ranch a little bit later, but the last piece that LEEF has is a store in Palm Desert, California, which is next door to Palm Springs, and that is called the Leaf El Paseo. Are you familiar at all with that store, Penny? Have you talked about it on your show here?
I haven't talked about it, but I am familiar with it, especially when I talk about your vertical integration, how it's really everything now from growing to selling at the retail level. So we've touched on it a bit, but please tell everybody a little more.
Yeah, so it's called the Leaf El Paseo. El Paseo is kind of like the Rodeo Drive of the Palm Springs area, really high-end area. This is an absolutely gorgeous store. I encourage anyone to just Google the Leaf El Paseo and it will show up. So we have this beautiful store. At one point, we thought about pursuing a bigger retail strategy, but decided to focus really on our core competency of extraction and now cultivation at the farm. And so we've been managing this one-off store, managing, operating everything for it on kind of like a one-off basis. It's a nice piece of our business, but it's an area we decided not to focus on. With this agreement with GLAShouse, what's going to happen is a managed services agreement where they are going to take over day-to-day operations of the store. Big benefit to us to have them come in, bring their retail expertise, but also bringing that buying power. They have 10 stores, 10 really productive stores in California. So the cost they're paying for everything is lower. We can eliminate some redundancies on the labor side by leveraging their resources. And they have a whole department at the company that's really dedicated to their retail business. So they're really great at it. So that's the benefit for LEEF to have GLAShouse manage the store. GLAShouse expands their retail footprint, which helps them, gives them, another revenue source through the managed services agreement. And also they'll want to put GLAShouse products in that store and, have another revenue source by selling more products in-house. So that's all helpful to both of us. In and of itself, that would have been a nice agreement for us to have. But there's an additional piece to this where plus the MSA, LEEF also is getting a very significant amount of GLAShouse material to extract every month. So you could call this an offtake agreement or supply chain agreement, where on a monthly basis, we go down to GLAShouse, we pick up, I won't say the amount, but a very significant amount of material from them. We bring that back to LEEF Labs in Mendocino, and that will give us a significant amount of material that we need to power our extraction business. So really a win-win in the sense that GLAShouse gets the store, professionally operated, managed. They can sell more of their products. LEEF benefits from the professional management of the store. We also keep shelf space there, Penny. So there's a defined amount of shelf space where we can still put LEEF products in the store. It'll maintain the Leaf El Paseo branding. It's not going to switch to a GLAShouse name at this point. And then we also have the supply chain agreement, which I think benefits GLAShouse too, because they have a consistent buyer of their material every month. And it's huge for us because it's not easy to source, great quality material for extraction in California, Penny. A lot of what passes for flower, once you concentrate it, won't pass as concentrates. So it's a big benefit for us to get this consistent stream of high quality material from them.
Okay, well, that's really exciting. I know I know I've talked a little bit about Glass House before, and I'll save most of this because I know you have a really good working relationship with them, and they are a great model, in my opinion, for how LEEF should be more fairly priced. Clearly, their market cap's like 500 million. They've got revenue to back that up. But I just want to talk about how the two companies really, you're working on the concentrate side of things, which I think is in about 48% of all products, concentrate in general. And
Yep.
they're working on the flower side. So basically 2 halves of the whole industry represented right there. But I'm really excited to see this because, I mean, from a management perspective, that does have to be a lot easier to, offload that task to a company that is very good at it, managing those
Yeah.
individual stores. So, and a great tie-in with, great exchange there. So let's change lanes and talk about the planting at your trophy ranch.
Yep. So Salisbury Canyon Ranch is, so I'm in Santa Barbara. If you were to drive about an hour that way, you would get to Glass House, which is about an hour south. If you drove a little over an hour that way, kind of north and a bit east, you would get to a town called New Kiama, and that is the home of about 5,000 people, and that is where what you call their trophy ranch, which is called Salisbury Canyon Ranch, is located. And this is a 1,900-acre ranch that's set in a beautiful valley with no neighbors around, so little risk of overspray and contamination from other farms. Really kind of an oasis that's bordered by the Los Padres National Forest. We acquired the ranch a couple of years ago. We've invested over $13 million in acquiring it and making improvements and getting it all set up for cannabis. We have the largest land use permit in Santa Barbara County, maybe in the state at this point, but for sure in Santa Barbara County. That is for 187 acres of cannabis. That's about 8.4 million square feet. And we also have a 100-acre hemp permit there as well. So have some optionality in the future to plant hemp. What we're doing this year, Penny, is we're planting the first 65 acres of cannabis, and we put plants in the ground in early April. And so for the first run, those will mature in late June. We'll harvest those, get a couple weeks to clean up the fields, and then we'll put in a second term for this fall. So 2 harvests this year at Salisbury Canyon Ranch, 65 acres twice. And the really key benefit of this is kind of like the Glass House deal. What you want for extraction is you want a clean or a consistent supply of clean, high-quality material. And we have a whole department at LEEF that all they do is what we call procurement, Penny, and that's a fancy name for working with farms around the state, constantly trying to get clean material. That's really a full-time job for us. So the Glass House deal will bring in a lot of that for us on a monthly basis, but Salisbury Canyon Ranch is even bigger and more important for us. And what we can do there is take material we're sourcing around California for $20 to $40 a pound, and we can grow better quality whole plant biomass ourselves for about half of that cost. And so for the first run, to get a little bit nerdy here, we're running something called auto flowers, and most of that will be purposed for distillate. Auto flowers are used because it's a way to get a second sun-grown harvest as opposed to just one full-term harvest. You can put in auto flowers; they automatically mature and flower in about 90 days. And so that's what we're doing for the first run. Most of that will be purposed for distillate. And then for the second run, we can get a bit fancier and we can grow different things for the different extraction lines. So we may still grow some material or some plants that work well for distillate. We also have a hydrocarbon line, which does things like live resin, shatters, butters, sugars, diamonds. We can grow strains that we know work perfectly for that line. And then third is rosin, which is our solventless line. And the solventless is really finicky from an extraction perspective, that you can see one strain will yield 3 or 4 times as much as another strain. So at Salisbury Canyon Ranch, we can go in and also plant things that work really well and are high yielding for solventless extraction. So really excited. Plants in the ground now. First harvest in June. Go back in July. Second harvest around October. And really in the third quarter, Penny, is when we're going to start mixing that material into our extraction line. And investors should start to see, as third and fourth quarter financials come out, our margins really improve by using that in-house material. That's about half the cost if we were to source it from a third-party farm.
There was so much information in there. And so I recommend everybody just play that over again. So that first planting was about 700,000 plants,
Correct.
right? That is a lot of biomass, right? That is a ton of material. And I know you were sourcing from about 300 different farms.
Mm-hmm.
So just from a logistics standpoint, this should absolutely help, but the margins is what I'm excited about. And that's one of the things when I've been looking at Glass House and what they're doing and their margins, I see you moving your operations very much in sync with what they've done, just a little bit behind them. And I'm really excited to see where we're at once that third and fourth quarter hit. So, all right.
Yeah, it even think further than that, Penny. I think you're on the right track there, but we're planting 65 acres this year. It's a 187 acre permit for cannabis. So next year we hope to scale into more, and then the following year, within 2 or 3 years, be using that full 187 acres. We consume over 250 acres of material per year. So, it would take getting close to full capacity for us to get all of our material from Salsbury Canyon Ranch. So, the needs this year, will certainly put a good dent in that. But when you think about going out into 26 and 27, there's an opportunity for us to continue to use more of our material at that lower cost. So I think this year is exciting, and I'm really excited to see the results show up in the third and fourth quarter, because that'll give investors an idea of how we can boost these margins. But then you can start to think about what that will look like if we were to double the acreage, and then if we got up to the full 187 acres. I used to be an analyst, Penny, and I used to cover LEEF Brands, and LEEF's weakness was the gross margin that historically it's been in the 30s. And this is the opportunity to take all the strengths and great qualities of that business, but change that margin profile and, first get us up into the 40s, and then looking out to 26 and 27, there's an opportunity to get to over 50% gross margins there. So certainly exciting for 25, but it would also have the longer vision. And if you want to get super crazy, which we don't have to get into today, there's also the potential for interstate commerce one day when we could ship these products, all around the country at much higher prices. And at that point, maybe even that 187 acre permit can be expanded and go to, 200-300 acres, which would really make us, the leader in the whole country in terms of the size of the farm. And extracts, Penny, are super easy to ship because you concentrate a big field into a couple of jars. So interstate commerce works super well for us. So sometimes I think about businesses like us and Glass House as being strong California businesses, but also the potential, for what we call, an embedded call option or kind of a free call option on interstate commerce one day. And I think we're really well positioned for that.
I think about that a lot, because if we get rescheduling and those state lines drop, you've grown this business in what I would argue is the most difficult state. Mm-hmm. So to let you loose in the other states, and especially having such a good growing environment.
Yeah, perfect.
High quality product. That would be absolutely phenomenal. But again, that is as you said, like a call option for the future, but it's a free call option if you're holding the shares. So.
Yeah, and not to get too picky, but I don't think that rescheduling probably leads to interstate commerce. I think that's probably federal legalization, but I think you're on the right track there.
All right. I'll give you that one. You're definitely right. I think of them in the same vein, because I feel like once rescheduling happens, that federal legalization is probably next. But
we're for sure on the right track. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, I think we're really excited. This MSA is a nice step for us. We talked about Salsbury Canyon Ranch. Sometime later, we can talk more about New York. But I think LEEF Brands has a tremendous opportunity ahead in the next, couple months, but especially in the next couple of years. And, this is just one exciting milestone, along that path. So thanks a lot for having me. Excited to talk today.
Perfect. Thank you.